Well, it's good to be with you tonight. We're doing a little bit of a preview of what we talked about this week. The title that I came up with in the message was What Guides Our Life? What guides our life? I spoke this past week on the subject of David and how that David used a stone, 5 smooth stones. God never told him to get the stones. He used the weapon that he had at his disposal because he was good at using the stone. He knew how to use a slingshot. Moses was used to use a rod. God used a rod when he told Moses to touch the sea. And the Bible says that he touched the sea and it took like an all-night wind to blow strong enough in order for that sea to open where they could go across on dry ground. Noah used a lot of wood. God told him how to build a boat. He was laughed at. He was mocked. He was made fun of. But he went out there and he built that boat, not ever seeing any rain at all. Joseph was used to be a father figure. The only thing Joseph could do was to protect his son that he was raising. And he took care of him. He fed him. He housed him. He protected him. God used Joseph as a father figure. Mary was also used. She was a virgin. That's hard for a lot of people to go and say, well, there's no way that a virgin can have a child. Well, that's what the Bible says, and I tend to agree with what the Bible says. The 12 was used by Jesus. If you go and think of all the disciples in the Bible, God used each of the 12. I was thinking about, Judas and how that Judas was a person that some people would go and say, well, he wasn't used for the glory of God. He was used for 30 pieces of silver. Well, it's still part of the story. The part of the story is still told. He had a choice whether he betrayed Christ or not. I don't believe he was born to portray Christ. I don't think that was his reason to have life, was to portray Christ. I think he made a decision to do it. Just think, this man, Judas, was with Jesus. He held the money for Jesus. Saul was used to rid Stephen. God used Saul he told the people, just lay your clothes down here at my feet and y'all go and stone Stephen. And they did. And the Bible says that Stephen fell asleep. I can go on and on. God used a limb to hold up Zacchaeus when Zacchaeus was walking ahead of the Lord and he wanted to see the Christ. And so he decided that he would get up in a limb. And that limb supported him until Jesus told him to come down out of the tree. God used a limb. This man, Paul, that is no longer Saul, Paul was used to write 2/3 of the New Testament. If you want to think of how valuable this man Paul was, The reason we have the Bible today is because of the Apostle Paul and the words that he wrote. Let me ask you a question. The same question that I asked the folks this week. Does God guide you? Let me ask you another question. Does God use you to put vulgar stuff on the internet? Does God use you to love him and trust in him 1 minute, and the next minute you're putting garbage and filth over the internet? You either on God's side or you're either on the devil's side. But you're not going to be on both sides. You're either going to choose one side or the other. That's the bottom line. Does God guide you? You say you love God, but when you put garbage over the internet, I have to wonder, honestly. You know, if God guides you, it starts in salvation. If you've really been truly born again, God is going to guide you in all truth. You're not going to want to do that. You're not wanting to put filth and garbage over the internet if you're really who you say you are. Is God guiding you? Is he guiding you tonight? That's the question. Thank y'all for listening.